Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Jocelyn, and every week we introduce a new entrepreneur or expert in the economy to tell their story and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada, as well as discuss potential solutions for economic growth and prosperity. Ontario is the manufacturing heartland of Canada, full of entrepreneurs and innovation. At the center of this is the family business. One such business is Mattina Mechanical. Joining us to discuss his family business is Domenic Mattina, the president of Mattina Mechanical Ltd. Mattina is based in Hamilton, Ontario, and a proud member of the Merit Ontario family. The family-owned business got its start in 1979 when Domenic's father built it from the ground up. Domenic took a leadership role in 2001, and together with his siblings, they have spent the last 20 years growing their business. Welcome to the program, Domenic. Great to have you.
Thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you for having me. And big congratulations to you for opening up this forum to entrepreneurs like myself. It's a great initiative that you've taken on and led.
Well, we love to hear stories of the entrepreneurs. There are so many great stories. Domenic, let's start. We always want to hear about our guest story. I included a little bit on Mattina Mechanical's start. Could you fill in the blanks on the Mattina story?
Sure. Like as you mentioned, my dad started in 1979, an Italian immigrant from Sicily, immigrated in the 50s, and late 70s were a good time for him to move into starting up his own mechanical plumbing and HVAC contracting firm. Very successful, kept it small and manageable at his level for over 22 years. And then over the years, raising four children, always promoting us, we stay in school or get into the trade. And I stayed in school. I became a professional engineer. And then about 7 years after working in the industry, I decided it was time to shift gears and come together with both my brothers to take over the family business. It was at a tough time, and it was more so trying to help my dad. 90s were a tough time for him, especially in construction. And fortunately for us, we got into some better times. And since that time, we've been able to grow the business fairly substantial, close to 10 to 15% range annually, year over year growth. We continue that trend to this day. And, and in that transition, we went from being a unionized shop to an open shop. And that's where my affiliation with Merit Ontario Open Shop Contractors has come in, and being a member of that organization, both provincially and nationally. Been there almost 20 years, and it's led me to meet some really great people like yourself.
Well, that is a great story. I love to hear the entrepreneur and family business story. You brought some video to highlight what you do at Mattina. We're going to take a look at it now, and you can tell us what we're looking at.
We're an ICI contractor, and that the acronym is Industrial, Commercial, and Institutional. Here's one of the commercial buildings we service. It's a 25-story office building downtown Hamilton, and we get into new construction, equipment renovations, renewals. This is, I'm guessing, about a 30, 40-year-old building. So we're replacing the chiller. This is the rooftop condenser that's going on the roof of this office tower. It's your typical type project we would work on. Our guys tend to find these ones more exciting. You can see that they came together. It was a perfectly executed type project. We put safety as a top priority, and that's something that we really advocate. In fact, this year we've become core certified in Ontario. Received our certificate of recognition, which is a big milestone for us as well.
Well, very impressive pictures. You folks are getting it done and building things. It's great to see how you go about building large projects and taking them on. We're going to go to break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about Merit Ontario, you were the past chair both for Ontario and nationally. We're going to hear about Merit Canada and what it does. We're going to take a quick break. You're watching Canadian Innovators. Don't go away. Before the break, we were seeing some of the pictures of the work that you did. Let's get into Merit Canada. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization?
Jocelyn, as I mentioned, my dad ran the business as a union contractor. Shortly after my brothers and I took over, we kind of switched gears and became an open shop contractor. Not an easy feat, but it was done. It helped us springboard our growth in Ontario and beyond. We've worked out of province as well. And what I found shortly after coming out of being a unionized contractor, one of the colleagues in my industry said, "You need to join Merit." And when I found out who Merit was and what Merit did and what they represented, it took me less than a split second to realize that I need to be a part of this organization, and not only be a part of it. I've been on the board for over 20 years. I've advanced to becoming past chair of Merit Ontario and also of Merit Canada, because I'm a firm believer in what we do and what we represent. And really, it comes down to the three basic pillars we have. Number one, we are an employer group, but we really advocate and represent our employees, because in the open shop world, there is no other organization that represents the open shop employee. And the only way to really get this done is through the open shop employers. So Merit, its first pillar is all about benefits and group retirement savings plan. So we have a Cadillac program. We're always looking to optimize it. I sit on the board for that benefits trust, and we compete at a very high level. We have thousands in our group, so we have great buying power, and we can offer great benefits for small companies at big company value. So benefits are one, and the other part is group retirement savings plan that we also advocate and promote to our members. We are a volunteer organization, so everything is voluntary. Secondly, one of the other pillars of the organization is education and training. This has become even bigger in the last few months, or a couple of years, that is, because we've had a government that's been friendly to the open shop world, both open shop and union. They've opened up training funds. We've been able to access millions of dollars in training funds, and have been able to build better programs for both health and safety and for technical training. And also, in addition to that, management training, because we're finding employers are requiring training in every regard. And Merit is actually done huge strides in the last 2 years in developing programs and implementing them, and training our members with them.
It's fascinating. Hadn't heard of Merit Ontario or federally before. Domenic, before we get to break, I do want to discuss with you open tendering. Many Canadians don't realize that there are companies that are not unionized and they're unable to bid on federal contracts, as well as contracts in some municipalities. Can you fill us in on this?
Well, thank you. That's the third pillar. And we're all about advocacy and representing the interest of our employers. And one of the biggest issues we have today with our government is open tendering. And what that means is there are certain government-funded institutions, whether it's in the municipal, provincial, federal, hospitals, any institution or agency funded by government dollars, we're advocating should be open for business for every qualified trade, not just unionized trades only. And that has been something that this government, the Ford government, has done well, and it's been received by our industry, because he's made some great inroads with opening up tendering. One example, City of Hamilton was unionized by carpenters, and a few years ago, those agreements were abolished, and Hamilton's open for business to every qualified trade. So that was a big win for us.
Well, congratulations on that. That is a big win. Let's get everybody being able to compete. One of the things that you had highlighted was training. Understand under federal training rules that there are funds that are not available to an open shop company such as yourself. I just have about 30 seconds. If we could squeeze it under the wire, your comments on this.
Yeah, a few years ago, the federal government initiated a training fund, but they only allowed it to union-only training centers, which left virtually 70% of the workers in Canada out, because there's only about 30% statistically, according to Statistics Canada, only 30% of construction is unionized in Canada.
Okay, well, I'm going to just stop you there. We're going to pick it up after the break. You're watching Canadian Innovators. Welcome back. My guest today is Domenic Mattina, Mattina Mechanical, and also a member of Merit Canada and Ontario. Pick up your thought, Domenic, before we went to break. We were talking about federal funds and the disparity between union and open shops.
Yeah, when the government released over 86 million in training funds, it was only open to union training centers only. That left out over 70% of the construction workers across this country. We've been lobbying hard for all workers to have equal access to all funding. The big achievement we were able to make was with the Ford government provincially, where he had a $120 million training fund that was open to everyone, and Merit was able to partake in that, and it's helped us build many programs, both on the health and safety side, technical and management training. We wouldn't be the same organization today if it wasn't for those funds.
That's a great win for you. Domenic, can you tell us about community benefit agreements? These have been recently included in unionized collective bargaining agreements to unionize projects. Your thoughts on this?
Community benefit agreements on the surface sound like a great idea. It's there to employ the underprivileged, those that are vulnerable in society. On the surface, it's a great concept, but it's how they've been put into practice that we don't agree with. And there's one specific example. It's most recent with the Ottawa Hospital, and they tagged collective bargaining agreements for union-only tendering to the community benefit agreements. And sometimes people get them mixed up. CBAs, which is this acronym for community benefit agreements, also get mixed up with collective bargaining agreements. So it's coincidental, but they actually form I would say a very creative way to unionize a project without calling it union. And that's one thing we're advocating. Community benefit agreements are okay, and I say that with caution, because as we all know, we're all struggling today to find people resources. And the more red tape we add to any project, it's going to make it even that much more challenging to execute. Or if these are mandatory agreements, even if collective bargaining is excluded, we have to be very cautious, because if you can't meet the CBAs, and sometimes we can't even meet those agreements today, regardless of the agreement, we can't even meet the demands for the people, to put people. There's more jobs today than there are people, and we're all fortunate enough to be busy. However, you add CBAs to this equation, you're just not going to get the jobs done.
You make a great point there. Let's shift gears and focus on the provincial government. I understand your current top issue is card-based certification. Could you tell us what this is and talk a little bit about it?
Card-based certification is basically remove the democratic right to vote. Historically, if an organization or a place of work wants to unionize, which they have every right to, there is a voting, a secret ballot vote that has to happen when at least 50+1% of the workforce signs a card saying they would like to be represented. And then it goes to a vote. Today in Ontario, all you need is 50% plus one card signed. And those cards can be signed by an employee that worked for a different organization. Those cards follow that employee for minimum 6 months. And if they're not dated, they can follow them forever. You can have an example where the labor board never closes. So you can have 3 workers for a company like mine, which is over 100. 3 could be working on a Saturday, and only if 2 of those workers have a card signed from previous employers, I could be filed for certification when none of my workers want it. And neither these cards that have been signed, they may not want it because they came from a different employer. So there's a lot of flaws to the system today. Card-based certification is just the title, but there's a lot that goes behind it that needs to be corrected. And Merit Ontario is working with our provincial government to help them to understand the nuances that need to be corrected. We're looking for fairness, we're looking for transparency, and we just want everybody to have a voice.
Sounds perfectly reasonable. We're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what your grade is for the Ford government, and you're going to be on the hot seat and tell us what you could do if you were a politician. You're watching Canadian Innovators. Don't go away. Welcome back. Before we went to break, we were talking about the provincial government and open shop organizations. Domenic, it's been 4+ years under the Ford government. If you were to grade the government on their commitment to be open for business, what grade would you give them?
I'd give them an A+.
Okay, and explain why.
Every government, no one's perfect. And this government, yeah, they've made mistakes. But when it comes to open for business, like I said, they've achieved open tendering. They abolished the College of Trades and reformatted the college so that it's more transparent. I was on that founding board, and transparency was lacking in a big way. We voiced our concerns to government. It made major changes of reform. There's also currently with in our industry, employee or apprenticeship ratios. We had 3-to-1 ratios, highest in the country. Government heard, they understood the facts and how apprentices need to be trained. A 1-to-1 ratio is plenty. They went back down to 1-to-1. Overnight, it employed hundreds, if not thousands, of people that we were able to also employ. So government is hearing, listening, and acting. And for me, this government, I gave you the example earlier, the training funds was another one. They just keep, and it's not just to one minority interest group. They're doing it for the broader sector, to everyone. So they're opening everything to all businesses, to all workers. So, and that's what we're looking for. We're not looking to be treated any different. We're just looking for fairness.
And absolutely, skilled labor is something that comes up in the manufacturing sector again and again. So Domenic, this is the part of the show that every week I ask my guests, if you were a politician, what 3 things you would do to grow jobs in the economy. Domenic, you're on the hot seat. What would you do?
Well, I'm going to pick the biggest topic of the day. Biggest topic of the day is housing. And when you hear, you're constantly hearing that our politicians, we hear from our politicians, we hear from people who are actually looking for homes that can't find homes, and that we have a serious housing shortage. It's understood that we want to bring 500,000 new immigrants a year. And I'd say in order to incentivize and to incentivize programs, make multifamily residential construction and rents tax exempt. It's very simple. So no capital gains tax, no tax on rental income, reduce the barriers and get out of the way. The market will create as many housing units as we need. So that would be my ask. And I think the government's on the right track with this most recent bill. There's a lot of items in there that need to be flushed out, but it has been a great start with the current bill we see at the provincial level, at least.
Anything else you would do if you were a politician? You have 2 more things you could do, and you could give me one, and then we'll get to our last question.
Great question. I always go back to what's the hottest topic today, and it seems like the whole greenbelt in our province. Everyone, that whole subject. Ford has done one of the best things he could have ever imagined the province could achieve. He's actually put more lands in the Greenbelt. But when you have partisan, when you have people up making partisan comments, they ignore all the good and they just focus on what's at hand. Ford corrected a serious grave error that the previous government made, and they arbitrarily put white belt lands in the green belt. He corrected that and then put non-white belt lands in the green belt. So he's doing our future, he's doing a service to our future for our children. And he's created more employment lands and created more lands for housing that we critically need. So,
absolutely. As a topic we always hear, I just got about 30 seconds left. The cost of energy and additional fuel tax is something that I continue to hear from business owners. It impacts their ability to compete. In the last 30 seconds, how does this affect your business?
it affects it in a serious way. For myself, lesser to some of my counterparts in the industry, I don't use a lot of heavy equipment, but those that do, and I have a lot of colleagues that do, it resonates with me because when I look at, even though I'm a small consumer when it comes to fuels, it impacts me in a major way. So if cost of fuel continues to go in the direction it is, we're going to see more and more people pulling out of Canada. That's what it comes down to.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to my guest, Domenic Mattina, the president of Mattina Mechanical Ltd. I'm Jocelyn Bamford. Thank you for watching Canadian Innovators. If you're an innovator, tell us your story. Write to us at ideas@thenewsforum.ca, and we'll see you next time.